Hi, everyone. I'm Viktor Ostlund, and welcome to Game Day Preview. I'm delighted to be joined today by Chris Burton. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing great. I'm ready for another great game this Saturday.
Me as well. Well, it's certainly obviously an exciting time to cover this team. Northwestern obviously 5-0 on the season, 11th in the AP poll, 8th in the college football rankings. I don't think I could have ever seen myself saying this, that Northwestern's a legitimate contender for one of those four college football playoff spots. Regardless, I want to start this preview off by looking back a little at 2019 and Northwestern's season so far. Last meeting between Michigan State and Northwestern came in early 2019. Michigan State handed the Cats a 31-10 loss at Ryan Field. Defense struggled, bunch of picks thrown by the two quarterbacks in that game. Northwestern's offense was stagnant. When you fast forward to now, Northwestern's obviously a 13.5 point favorite going into the game tomorrow. What exactly do you think has changed so much over the past 12 months, and who do you think the credit has to go to for how Northwestern's performed this season?
Yeah, you talk about the success Northwestern has had this year. Whenever you talk about that success, it has to start with the defense. Obviously, it's vastly improved from last year. Last year, opponents were scoring about 23.6 points per game on this defense. This year, it's nearly cut in half. Opposing offenses are scoring almost 12, just over 12 points per game. And by some metrics, this Northwestern defense is the best defense in the country, which is something Northwestern's always had a great defense, but best in the country has never really been attributed to it until now. So, when you talk about that success, it has to start there. And it's obviously helped to get guys like Greg Newsome back and get newcomers like Brandon Joseph. But when you talk specifically about the turnaround from last year, that credit has to fall on two guys, Peyton Ramsey and Mike Bajakian. Now, credit Northwestern for going out and getting both of these guys, but they brought the offense from a middling offense last year, or an offense that was one of the worst in FBS. Their defense was middling last year, to one that now this year is scoring just enough points to keep their defense afloat and win them games. Now, they're not going to hang 60, drop 60 on any opponents, which, Northwestern will never really do that under head coach Pat Fitzgerald, but you got to credit those two guys for bringing this offense into some sense of competency and giving these guys a chance to win some football games.
Right, exactly. It's obviously been a fantastic turnaround. Now switching a little gears to Northwestern's opponent this weekend, Michigan State. It's been a little bit of an up and down season for them. They went to the Big House, beat a 13th ranked Michigan team in week 2. But apart from that, it's been a bunch of lows, losses to Rutgers, a blowout loss at Iowa. And just 2 weeks ago, they were shut out against Indiana, obviously another top ranked team, but consistency certainly hasn't been Michigan State's thing this year. If there is, are there any couple of things that we can expect from Sparty in this game tomorrow? And who should Northwestern look out for when they start preparing for this game?
Yes. First, I want to get one thing straight. That win against Michigan is not the banner making win that it has been in years past. This is a Michigan team that very nearly lost to Rutgers. So we're not looking at a powerhouse in the maize and blue that we have seen in past years. But let's get to Michigan State. What you're going to see from Michigan State, what you can depend on, is this is a team that's beatable on both sides of the ball. They are rebuilding defensively. And all over, they're just a half a step slow, it seems, in watching some of their game film. Their linebacking core especially has really been burned by outside runs. And so expect Northwestern to try and get the ground game going in this game. And offensively, they're in the middle of a quarterback battle, which you never want to be in the middle of a season. The head coach has not made a decision yet this week between Rocky Lombardi, who started the first 4 games for the Green and White, and Peyton Thorne. Now, Rocky Lombardi, no relation to Vince, by the way. He is a talented quarterback, but he has a propensity for making bad decisions. He also underthrows the ball at times, but he has played himself into this quarterback battle essentially this year. And so it'll be interesting to see who suits up for the green and white on Saturday, and if they choose to play both quarterbacks and switch off. Now, what's not helping these quarterbacks is Michigan State's offensive line play. It lacks push, and that does two things. It forces the run game into a hole because now you're not getting to that next level and creating holes for your running backs. And that makes the game one-dimensional, which makes it just even that much harder to throw the football. That one-dimensionality is something that Northwestern can capitalize on. You know, this pass rush played their best game against Wisconsin last week. If they can make this Michigan State team one-dimensional, if they can take away that running game, it's not going to matter who's a quarterback, because they then will have the tools to just shut down that running game and shut down the passing game once Michigan State comes to rely too heavily on it.
Right. And shifting to Northwestern on the flip side, obviously, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be on Michigan State's side. You can pretty much expect most of the positions for Northwestern, if not all of them. Consistency has been key, at least this season, and they've certainly had a balanced offense. You have 8 rushing touchdowns, 8 passing touchdowns. There are only 2 players with multiple touchdowns, that being Ramad Chakio-Bowman and Drake Anderson. That said, if you did have to pinpoint one single player for the Wildcats that really needs to perform for the Cats to get a win, who would that be?
Yeah, so I'm going to switch up the question here a little bit, because I think this is the game that Northwestern can win if any number of players step up on Saturday. I'm going to say, if I'm Pat Fitzgerald and I'm looking at this game, who do I want to see perform that would make me feel the best about the end of the season going into the postseason? And I'll give you 2 names, Victor. I'm going to give you Drake Anderson and Isaiah Bowser. The 2 running backs for Northwestern, they've struggled in the past couple weeks, especially against Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin's defense is very strong, one of the best in the country, but Wisconsin held them to 18 yards on 10 combined carries. And that's just not going to get it done against some of the better teams like an Ohio State. Or should Northwestern play in the college football playoff or the Rose Bowl, they'll be matching up against teams that will look to limit these running backs. So if I'm Pat Fitzgerald, I'm looking for these running backs. Like I said, this linebacking core is beatable. I'm looking for them to gain some chunk yardage and really show up in this game on Saturday. Now, the flip side to that is I don't need to see huge plays out of Drake Anderson or Isaiah Bowser. I don't need to see 20, 30-yard runs. What I'm looking for is consistently getting 4, 5, 6 yards a rush against this Michigan State defense. And that's going to make me feel a lot better about the multifaceted offense, the amount of weapons that I have going into the postseason.
Right. There's only one way to finish up this segment, and that's with a score prediction. We've covered both sides of the ball, Michigan State and Northwestern. What is your score prediction, Chris?
I think Northwestern goes into East Lansing and takes it to the Michigan State Spartans. I'm going Northwestern 30, Michigan State 10, and Northwestern will be looking for lodging in Indianapolis next week.
There we have it. Chris Burton predicts a Northwestern win, which would clinch the Big Ten West Division title for Northwestern for the second time in 3 years and push the Cats to 6-0 on the season. Unfortunately, that's all we have today, but you can catch Northwestern and Michigan State at 2:30 Central tomorrow from East Lansing. For Chris Burton, I'm Viktor Ostlund at NN Sports.